Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Today I'm going to go over how to trellis in a normal garden bed, how I do it, some effective ways, some things I think I can improve on, and I'm going to show you all that, and as well as my weekly farm update coming up after this.
Hi, I'm Jared McGinnis. Thanks for joining me and my family on this adventure, where over the next 2 years, we're going to show you how to change an average subdivision home into a local, sustainable food source for you and your family. From market gardening to orchards, greenhouses, and water catchment systems, it's all right here on Strong Roots Farm.
Well, here we are, the middle of May, and spring has finally sprung. The weather has finally been good enough that it's not going to freeze at night and frost at night. It is in the mornings, at least. It's going to be one of the craziest springs I've ever dealt with. So I'm later than I've ever been. My crops are smaller than I've ever been. My wife showed me one of those time-lapse videos on Facebook, and it was like our kale was huge, our lettuce was huge this time last year. So it's kind of frustrating. And so if you're going through this, I'm feeling the same frustrations, and I've been doing this for years. So it's not that I'm an expert, but the experience should limit me some ability to be past all this stuff. The main reason that I'm way behind is I don't have a greenhouse. So that being said, today I want to talk to you about trellising. So when I talk about that, the main things I trellis are my tomatoes, of course. Sugar snap peas do very well under trellis or netting, as well as my cucumbers. So those are the main things that I do. I do have a new variety of eggplant this year that I'm going to try to trellis. But how do you do that if you don't have a greenhouse? If you don't have a large hoop structure with 8 or 10 foot ceilings, how do you tie things up? How do you trellis them? Or without building a huge, 4x4 stanza that stays permanently in your garden, how do you do that? How do you trellis? Here's what I'm going to show you today. So this is what I've done. I've taken T-posts, and these are shorter. I'll have some bigger 8-footer ones as I come in. These are 5-footers, made for typical cattle fence. They have a dog ear at the bottom, and that is how far I've buried them into the ground. So what I mean is as you come down these T-posts, they have a piece of metal that comes out that keeps them stable. I buried just to the top of that. So what I've done is I've driven these into the ground. I've got some 2-inch tees up top, and then I ran conduit, which is 1/2-inch EMT conduit that you can get at any hardware store, across the top. So pros and cons. Pro is it's definitely mobile. So I can put this on any row, I can pull them up, I can take them apart, and they're able to switch around, and it's very low cost. T-post you should be able to buy for $5 to $7 at any farm and fleet store, or hardware stores will have them. Those type of things. You don't have to have one of the expensive T-post hammers. I do recommend it if you have one. They're very nice. I don't even have one. I think I sold it when we sold the other farm, but I just took a sledgehammer and put them in, or a little small hammer. It's not that hard if your soil's decent. 2-inch tees, I think those are a couple bucks a piece at a hardware store. I think you can go 1.5 inches. I think you can buy 1.5 inch PVC tees, and they will slide over. I have seen other videos of guys doing the same method, and they use 1 inch and then take a sawzall and cut slits in them that fit over the top of your tee. That'll make it a little more stable. So, but the 2-inch are fine. I will buy 1.5 inch next time. They're a little cheaper, and it'll be a little tighter. 1/2-inch EMT conduit. So I didn't come up with this idea. I saw this from another farmer. Actually, I think it was Never Sink Farm does them like this. And so I stole this idea, and that's limiting you giving you the idea to steal it from me. So I like the 1/2-inch EMT. It's cheaper. The connectors are there. It comes in 10-foot sections. I'm not sure. So as we go down through here, I want you to see, I'm not sure on the strength of this stuff that it's going to hold tomatoes. So you can see I can kind of flex it. If you get 100 pounds of tomatoes on there, I'm not sure that it's going to hold. I've seen other guys do it, and it does. But for sugar, these are my sugar snap peas. This works very well, and I'm happy with 1/2-inch. 1/2-inch EMT conduit is what I use to make my bows, if you're watching my past videos. I think in the future I will buy 3/4 at least, if not inch, EMT conduit. So that's something that I would improve on this method. As we go over spacing, so as we go down the row, you can see they're kind of evenly spaced from what it looks like in the video, but they're not. And so I'll tell you what I did. The 1/2-inch EMT comes in 10-foot sections. you want to try to minimize how much you cut. Unfortunately, I have 25-foot beds. They will not fit perfectly unless you come in and indent in. And that being said, it's 2.5 pieces to get 25 foot. I had a 7-foot piece where I had done some electrical work and used this as how it's supposed to be. So I had an extra piece, so I didn't have to cut this. I do like this, like 1-foot section that I stuck out. It gives some stabilization, and you can see there's a zip tie on it. I like how, so I wrapped it around the EMT, and then I zip tied it around the T. I like that it makes it a little more stable. It keeps it from sliding a little bit. So spacing wise, how did I do it? I drove my first post at the beginning of my row. I went in 8 feet. Then from there on, I went 10 feet. What that allows is there's a connector, which I'll take you down and show you, but there's a connector that puts these 2 pieces of conduit together with 2 screws. You do not want that to end up underneath one of these T's. So essentially my first spacing is 8 foot, allowing me a 1 foot here and 1 foot after the second post to stick past, and then my connector goes there. So it does not end up underneath my PVC. I like that. You can slide this through, you put the connector on, you slide your second piece of conduit through, and you only need 1 person. You don't have to have 2 people there holding it. So that's what I would recommend you do. Let's go down, I'll show you that connector real quick. So right here is the connector. Has 2 screws. There's a couple types of these that you can buy at the hardware store. There's a really nice smooth looking one that goes a little further. And then there's this cast connector. These are about 60 cents. The smooth ones are like $1.80. So triple price. So I went with this just because of the price. It will hold it. You can see it's very tight. And I like this connector, but this is what I'm talking about. I don't want that underneath this T. Next, what I did, once I had the conduit in, I ran a string. This is just typical tomato twine. I buy a 1,000-foot box and it's lasted me my life so far. And so I ran 1 string, wrapping it a couple times around each T-post as I went down the line. So I ran this bottom string on, then I tied each individual string in a knot on that string, and then went up and looped over. Sugar snap peas, because of this height, because of how much they'll grow, I'm not gonna have to lower these strings like I would with tomatoes. So I just went ahead and made a knot up there. And if the sugar snap pea grows higher than this, I'll just lay it over the top of the pole and it can continue to grow back down to the ground. But this is very sufficient, very good for the sugar snap peas. And this same method will work for my cucumbers, which I'm gonna do, and my tomatoes. I just think I'm gonna have to have stronger EMT conduit to do that. The difference that I'll do with the cucumbers and the tomatoes is that the tomatoes, I'm gonna tie the string at the bottom or clamp them to the bottom of the tomato plant when they're about 1 foot tall as I start to prune. Tomatoes grow from the top out and that stem will stay there, so the string will never loosen up. Whereas the cucumbers and the sugar snap peas, I like to have this bottom string to tie to, and they'll kind of naturally grow. As the plant grows up, I kind of force it to grow around that string that's designated for it. I try to keep it from growing over and its tentacles growing over and touching the other strings. That way they kind of get some spacing and the light goes through. Let's talk about lighting. So lighting may be one of the negatives of trellising within your garden beds, not having a specific area where you trellis. So this is south, directly behind me. So my beds are running north-south perfectly. I get the most sunlight as I can from east to west as the sun comes over, and there's nothing back here obstructing the low sun in the early spring and the late fall. So as I think about this though, if this is super thick with the trellis, it's gonna cast a shadow in the evening on this bed and a shadow in the morning on this bed, depending on how thick I get. Sugar snap peas, I think you're safe. Never had an issue. Light goes through there fine, not a big deal. Tomatoes, depending on how thick you prune them, they'll cast a shadow or not. Cucumbers with those big leaves definitely will cast a shadow. So you might think about having a bed somewhere else away from your garden for those types of things. I'm gonna do it right here though. On my cucumbers, I'm just gonna leave them a little further in my spacing, and I'll do 2 rows. So 1 row will go angled up this way, the other row will go angled up this way to this EMT conduit right here, and it will allow a little more light as the day goes on to the beds. But I am gonna think about what I'm gonna plant in these beds. So I'm not going to plant fruiting plants. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking my cucumbers and those types of things, zucchini, that need a lot of sun, that photosynthesize a lot because they produce a fruit. Whereas a lettuce and those types of things aren't as sun intensive. They don't need as much light. They like the light, they can handle the light, but the carrots and the salad mixes do better with just a little bit of shading. This could also be a pro in the summertime when you're dealing with heat. If you put a bed of salad mix, like this bed right here, between 2 rows of something trellis like this, it would cast a shadow day and night, and it would reduce some of the heat on that salad mix that you might get burned up in your September and August, July to September basically here in Ohio. I have trouble growing my salad mixes because they burn up, or they'll go to seed too quick. They'll call that bolting. So I try to think about that. I could use this method to shade those a little bit and maybe extend my season on salad mixes out in the bed without any kind of shade cloth. Well, there you have it. That's the trellising. If you have questions, leave your comments. I'll definitely try to answer those. I like this. The fabric is down, the drip tape's under it, all that stuff's there. I don't have to worry about the sugar snap peas. I'm getting good growth, and with the weather that's coming this week, today is kind of the first day that we've been above 35 at night. So as we go on through the season now, things will start to really go fast in these videos. As we do a quick farm tour, you've seen my box. I've added some more compost. Sorry for the dizziness here, but that's what's in this trailer. I've kept it covered. I've got all my beds now covered with compost, and I have about a yard left in my trailer that I will use as I flip beds. In here, I'm not going to have strawberries ready this year, so I went ahead and just threw some watermelon in there. I want to have something growing, and you can see it's not completely full. As I get more soil, I'll continue to put that around the watermelon, and I'll show those videos, but then it'll be ready for in the fall when I go to plant these strawberries in. So as we go through real quick, flowers, you can start to see them now on the video. As you get close, they're really nice. I do have onions sprouting. These are the ones that I direct seeded. This is my second succession. The tallest one I have is 1.5 inches down this row. I've got 4 to 5 inches on these onions. These are really late. These things should be a foot tall by now. Very disappointed in myself with these onions that are going to turn into bulb onions. But as long as we don't go from 60 up to 100 very quick here in Ohio, these should be fine. But that's where I'm at on the onions. Carrots, very low growth for carrots. I didn't have a hoop house, and that's the reason. My first succession should have been in a hoop house. We just went over the trellising and the sugar snap peas, looking well. Salad mix, disturbing how far I am behind, but it's doing okay. I planted this row again, so if you look back a few videos and go back and watch some of my videos, this was a failure. I took it up, recomposted, put a drip tape down, and reseeded these today. These are green beans. I've got kales, some Swiss chard, some head lettuces. That's all coming up here, so you can see that. Here in this row here, I have a flower on the end that my wife wanted. I like to bring in pollinators. I have this red cabbage and then some other cabbages down through there, and my zucchini at that end. First succession of zucchini. I do not think I'm going to be that far ahead this year by starting in trays. Next, I have cucumbers. So you can see here, this will be a trellis bed, and they'll go from both sides. There's 2 rows. So my cucumbers are about this tall, and but we've transplanted them today. All the peppers, 2 rows of peppers. This is 12-inch spacing. Peppers are small, but they are in. They were transplanted today as well. Another variety of green beans is in. I have 1 open bed here. I think I'm going to plant more green beans, but I'm still kind of deciding. Typically this time of year, I would be taking and killing one of those beds of lettuces off, and it would already been harvested 2 or 3 times, and then I could be planting something else there. But I got to think about what I have in my trays, because this is my last bed. And then here I seeded zucchini again today, 3 different varieties. Drop seed right into the fabric, and that's that one. And then the last bed that's against the wall back here will be tomatoes against the wall. And then in the front of that, you'll see the small holes there. That'll be the herbs that I have out here in my grow box right there. And the herbs will go in front of those. It helps with pest protection. Plus I do love basil with my tomatoes. So it's always good to plant those next to each other. They help each other out. And so that's it. Back here where the black plastic is, that is where the greenhouse will go. So it's stale seed bedded. It's been a long time. I'm going to bring in some better soil. I'll build my beds, I'll compost them, and I'll have some fall crops in there, and then next year we'll be ready to do tomatoes. I may try to put I have another tray of tomatoes. I may try to put those in there this year if I can get that done in time. But that's where we're at on the farm. And you can see over here, now that I've got kind of everything going, I did stale seed bed my end walkway. I had some grass coming up through the wood chips, so I went ahead and stale seed bedded that. That'll be there for 3 or 4 weeks and kill anything off that's there. Last thing that's been going on is I've got the fence up. So I'll do a pest protection video and we'll go over some of these things, but this is an electric fence to keep my deer and the rabbits and things away. I don't have a permanent fence. This is my first pole for my permanent fence. This is my Gallagher charger that I washed the box and I'm charging the battery today. It'll be on solar, and I'll do a whole video on that, but that's been put in as well. And it will have permanent fence, but I have to deal with permits and things right now from where I live. So that's it. Well, there you have it. That's the update. That is the trellising. I want to encourage you, if you have nothing in the ground, if you haven't started, if you're just thinking, okay, I'd like to do this, but I'm late. I want to go get compost. I want to build a couple beds. You still have time. You're not behind. You're not going to get a full season in, but I'm not doing great either. Okay, it's fine. You still have plenty of time to grow all your food that you could use. And during this pandemic and things, you should have some extra time. It'd be a good project for you and your kids, perhaps. It's a good time. You're still okay. As long as you get stuff in before the middle of June, you're still gonna have crops. So go ahead, you can get some stuff in quick. You can get stuff from seeds. I know Johnny's is back up shipping seeds. So get on there. There's lots of other seed salesmen and seed companies as well that you can get through seeds from. Get you some seeds, start your garden. You still have time, but if you're keeping up with me, hopefully your garden looks better than mine, and I appreciate you guys watching. I hope this video helps you today about trellising, and then stick with me. I'll keep doing these weekly farm updates and trying to give you new information each week. Thanks for watching.
As always, thanks for watching. Tell your mama and them. Subscribe and comment to continue with us on this journey. And don't forget to check out Noah Smith at noahsmithmusic.com.